Welcome to ZoomInData. Hello everyone. Thank you for joining the 12th video in our comprehensive Azure Logic Apps series. In this session, titled Pricing Models, Consumption and Standard Billing, we will explore the two primary pricing models for Azure Logic Apps: consumption, pay-as-you-go, and standard, reserved capacity. Detailed breakdown of how billing works for triggers, actions, connectors, storage, and other components. Key differences between the models, including cost drivers, predictability, and when to choose each one. Cost optimization tips, monitoring tools, and real-world examples for effective budgeting. Understanding pricing is essential for designing cost-effective solutions, especially in production environments with varying workloads. If you find this content valuable, please subscribe to ZoomInData and enable notifications to follow the complete series. Let us begin. What are the two main pricing models for Azure Logic Apps? The consumption model, multi-tenant, uses a pay-as-you-go approach where you are charged only for the actual executions of triggers, actions, and connectors. The standard model, single-tenant, uses a reserved capacity model where you pay fixed monthly costs for dedicated compute resources, vCPU and memory, regardless of usage, plus variable charges for certain connectors. Both models also incur separate charges for storage, integration accounts, and premium, enterprise connectors. How does billing work in the consumption pricing model? Billing is strictly usage-based. You pay per execution of triggers and actions after an initial free allowance of built-in operations per subscription. Each workflow run meters triggers, actions, including loops and retries, and connector calls individually. There are no fixed infrastructure costs, ideal for unpredictable or low-volume workloads. What components are metered and billed in the consumption model? Triggers. Each polling check or event receipt is metered as an execution, even if no data is found. Actions. Built-in actions, e.g., conditions, loops, are charged per execution after free tier. Managed connectors are charged per call. Storage. Run history retention, inputs, outputs, and queues, tables for state are billed via Azure Storage pricing. Integration accounts. Fixed monthly tier-based pricing, basic, standard, premium, separate from executions. How does the standard pricing model differ in billing structure? You pay a fixed monthly cost based on the selected hosting plan and pricing tier, vCPU and memory allocation. Billing occurs for reserved capacity and dedicated resources whether the workflows run or not. Additional variable costs apply for managed connectors, per call, and separate Azure storage usage. What are the main cost components in the standard model? Compute resources. Fixed hourly or monthly charges based on vCPU and memory, e.g., workflow service plan or app service premium tiers. Connectors. Managed connectors, standard, enterprise, are charged per call, same as consumption. Storage. Fully separate Azure storage billing for queues, tables, blobs, and run history retention. Integration accounts. Same fixed tier-based pricing as consumption. How are connector calls billed in both models? Standard connectors, charged per call, typically $0.000125 per call. Enterprise connectors, higher rate, typically $0.001 per call. Built-in connectors, native to runtime, are generally free in standard, unlimited, and metered in consumption after free tier. What is the free allowance in the consumption model? There is an initial number of free built-in operations per Azure subscription. Above this threshold, all built-in action executions are charged. Managed and custom connectors are always charged per call, regardless of free tier. How does storage billing work across both models? In consumption, storage for run history, inputs, outputs, and queues, tables is metered under consumption data retention pricing. In standard, storage is billed separately through Azure storage pricing. You manage your own storage account. Retention limits are configurable at the resource level, affecting long-term costs. How are integration accounts priced? Integration accounts use a fixed monthly pricing model based on tier, basic, standard, premium. Pricing covers storage of artifacts, partners, agreements, schemas, maps, and XML processing capabilities. The same tiers and rates apply to both consumption and standard models. What is the key difference in cost predictability between the two models? Consumption offers high predictability for variable or low-volume workloads. You pay only when workflows execute. Standard provides cost predictability for high-volume or continuous workloads due to fixed reserved capacity pricing. Standard avoids surprise bills from unexpected spikes but incurs costs even during idle periods. When should you choose the consumption pricing model? Choose consumption for unpredictable, event-driven, or low to moderate volume workloads. Ideal when you want zero fixed costs and pay only for actual usage. Best for prototyping, small-scale integrations, or scenarios with sporadic executions. When should you choose the standard pricing model? Choose standard for predictable, high-volume, or mission-critical workloads requiring consistent performance. Ideal when you need dedicated resources, VNet integration, unlimited built-in operations, or local development. Best for enterprise-grade, high-throughput, or compliance-sensitive applications. How does connector usage affect overall cost? Connector calls, especially enterprise, can significantly increase bills in high-volume scenarios. Prefer built-in connectors, free, unlimited in standard, over managed ones whenever possible. Monitor connector calls separately through Azure Cost Management for optimization. How can you monitor and control costs in Azure Logic Apps? Use Azure Cost Management plus billing to track usage by resource, meter, and tag. Set budgets, alerts, and cost analysis views for Logic Apps specific metrics. Review run history and optimize workflows to reduce unnecessary executions. How can you monitor and control costs in Azure Logic Apps? Use Azure Cost Management plus billing to track usage by resource, meter, and tag. Set budgets, alerts, and cost analysis views for Logic Apps specific metrics. Review run history and optimize workflows to reduce unnecessary executions. What cost optimization strategies work well for standard model? Right-size the hosting plan, vCPU, memory, based on actual workload. Start small and scale up. Use auto-scaling rules and shut down idle resources when possible. Monitor vCPU, memory usage via Azure Monitor to avoid over-provisioning. How do hybrid deployments affect pricing in standard model? In hybrid, Azure Arc enabled, you pay only for vCPU usage, per hour, while managing your own infrastructure. Connector calls are still metered as usual. This can reduce costs compared to full Azure hosted standard for on-premises heavy workloads. What additional costs should you consider beyond Logic Apps? Azure storage for run history, queues, and blobs, especially in standard. On-premises data gateway, free, but requires compute resources. Related services called by connectors, example service bus, SQL, functions. How do you estimate costs before deployment? Use the Azure pricing calculator to input expected executions, actions, connectors, and storage needs. Simulate workflows with sample data to measure real execution counts and durations. Review historical usage from similar workloads or Microsoft-provided examples. What are common cost pitfalls in Logic Apps? Overly frequent polling triggers causing thousands of unnecessary executions. High-volume managed connector calls, especially enterprise, driving up variable costs. Forgetting to disable workflows or set short retention periods in consumption. How has pricing evolved? As of January 2026, no major structural changes. Consumption remains pay-per-execution. Standard remains reserved capacity. Continued emphasis on unlimited built-in operations in standard and connector call metering. Enhanced cost visibility in Azure cost management with more granular Logic Apps metrics. Why is understanding pricing critical for interviews and real projects? Interviewers often ask, how would you choose between consumption and standard for a high-volume scenario? Demonstrates production awareness. Poor pricing choices lead to budget overruns or performance issues. Essential for designing cost-effective, scalable enterprise solutions. How do you use Azure cost management tools for Logic Apps? Tag Logic Apps resources for cost allocation and filtering. Create budgets with alerts for unexpected spikes. Use cost analysis to drill down by meter, actions, connectors, storage, and resource. What is the impact of loops and retries on pricing? In consumption, loops and retries meter each inner execution individually. In standard, built-in operations are unlimited, free, but managed connector calls inside loops are still charged. Optimize loops to minimize unnecessary iterations and connector calls. How should organizations decide between consumption and standard for cost efficiency? Choose consumption for variable, low to medium volume workloads to minimize fixed costs. Choose standard for predictable high-volume workloads where fixed capacity costs are lower than variable spikes. Run cost simulations in the Azure pricing calculator and pilot both models for your specific patterns. Thank you for watching this detailed session on pricing models for Azure Logic Apps. If you found this video helpful, please like, share, and subscribe to ZoomInData. More Azure Logic Apps interview and tutorial videos coming soon. Stay connected and keep learning.